Looks like Q has all his notifications on.
Yeah.
He's
He got bells everywhere and shit.
a little
His printer prints.
guys, we're live. Okay,
Oh,
all right,
nice,
dude.
nice.
Some decorum here. This is Layer1Live, as you guys know. Thank you for hopping in the chat. It is another week. It is another Monday. Good to have everybody here. Sorry for that volume spike there. If you're listening on audio to start, how you guys doing today, man?
Man, we're doing well. We're having a good time, as you guys can tell. It's a little bit of a Monday, bloody Monday, if you will. Certainly in the traditional markets, and then in crypto here. But it's a gorgeous day here in Pittsburgh. We're just soaking it all in, pretending like nothing's happening and the Bitcoin's not under 8K.
This is fine,
This is fine.
I woke up this morning thinking that we were going to do this, and it's just like we're going to block it out completely, that the whole world is actually crashing down. So everybody at home, hope you're doing the same while listening to us. This will be like your hour and a half of, I guess we're talking about the market crashing in Layer1Live. So anyways, hope you took your Flintstone vitamins for coronavirus. If not, you'll figure it out. We got a good episode today. We've got updates. We got breaking. I think PlusToken is selling off some BTC here. At least that's the hypothesis. We got quick news. We got discussion. Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, EOS, and Binance. So a very good episode today. I want to hit a couple of the team updates. Mike, you headed out of town here?
Yeah, man. I'm going south for the Corona winter, going down to New Orleans. So you guys won't see me on the interviews this week. You'll see these two handsome gentlemen. We got some good ones this week. Who do we have this week, Q?
So we have EOS Nation, and then we have Framework Ventures at the end of the week. So those two should be great. I think we had another reschedule. God, I really hate when people reschedule, but EOS Nation filled in, so they will be on Wednesday, and then Framework is going to be released on Friday. Key Largo Llama, what's up, man? He says, yo, what's going on, Layer1Live?
What's going on?
Yo.
So
yeah, Framework Ventures is a great one. If you look at some of their investments that they've made in the past, I know Synthetics is one, Maker might be one. They seem to have a pretty interesting and a pretty unique investment thesis, I guess, if you will. So I'm sad I'm missing that one, but that'll be a good one. Make sure to tune into that one, and obviously EOS Nation as well. What's this? Are you rolling in swag over there? What's going on with this CryptoKitty and Bitcoin man that I do not have yet?
we had Alex Mashinsky on the podcast last week, and he basically told me and Dima that we don't work for a living. But this is one of the perks of having the podcast. You guys see right here, my little from CryPTOKAIJU, Oliver, was able to send that over. So we did want to have a naming contest. So we're gonna do that in our Telegram. Maybe we'll throw it on Twitter. It's gonna be it's not gonna be a big deal. We just want the community to name this little guy that's sitting in the back. Again, shout out to Oliver from CryPTOKAIJU. I'll drop the link in the description if you guys want to get a CryptoKitty. He hasn't sent the Bitcoin man for you, Mike. I don't know what's up. He might not like you.
I think the confirmation time's a little bit slower on the Bitcoin man than the
Got him. All right, well, we have a lot of breaking news to get to, guys. So again, we will be doing that CryptoKitty name in our Telegram. So join the Telegram; it's in the description. But for those of you that are joining in late, maybe you didn't catch us live, I will have all of our talks timestamped, so you can get, like, if you're interested in a specific network, you can jump right to that network. Or if you don't want to hear Dimitri talk, you can just press the next story and just go there. So you don't like that, Dima? You're out.
I'm out. I'm gonna head out.
He's rocking 3 stripes today. You better be careful what you say.
No hat though. That he doesn't have the full ensemble. I want to see it. I want to see the newsboy hat. But anyways, sure. All right. So obviously, and you guys can touch on this too, the markets are not looking good. One of the overarching themes I think that we should talk about is whether the Bitcoin narrative of store of value has completely gone away, because we see that it's completely, at least correlated a little bit to the traditional markets, right? And people are treating it like a risk-on asset. So we, we really need to talk about that and see whether that narrative still exists. But some people have a thesis based on transactions sent to mixers from the PlusToken scam wallets. So if you guys don't know, there was a big cryptocurrency scam in Asia called PlusToken. They did the standard scam of do you guys know how they attained the 13,000 BTC?
I think it was like a classic, hey, give us, your Bitcoin and we'll turn it into 10 Bitcoin.
Yeah. It's like a hex scam.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I mean, less of like a pump and dump and more of an off the books or off public market scam where they were collecting a ton of Bitcoin with promises that they were some sort of like quant trading firm or some shit, and that they would return you more Bitcoin than you were due. So at least that's what I was told and I heard. And it was, when you say a big scam, I mean, it was like $2.2 billion
in Asia.
Yeah.
Some guys get caught, right?
Yeah. There's a bunch of people in jail. Some people still not. Obviously, there's anonymous people that still have control of these wallets, because basically what's happened is a Twitter user, and I believe the Twitter user works at Ergo Research. That's at least the company that kind of found this like on-chain transactions out. So they basically, I believe it's at Ergo BTC. He basically saw that 13,000 BTC moved from these wallets, and I don't know what the actual price of 13,000 BTC at this point.
It's like 100 mil.
Yeah, it was about 120 mil at the time of
something
movement.
Something about 100 mil moved to these mixers, and then obviously there's no way to track these after they were put into these mixers. So, but the idea here is that 13,000 BTC went into these mixers and likely were sold off, and that's where you see kind of the sell off here with Bitcoin. I know it's probably down 10% over the last probably 3-4 days, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know the numbers on that, but basically that is the story. We do have PlusToken moving this BTC to these mixers and possibly to exchanges. Now that can't be proven, so that this is just a hypothesis. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a very negative kind of sentiment driving narrative, if you will, in crypto. I think 2019 and now 2020. I think it's one where a lot of people are just kind of waiting and saying, okay, like, dump the Bitcoin, because there's ETH as well that they stole. So it's dump the Bitcoin, dump the ETH, right? Let's just kind of get past this. There have been other times where they've moved a lesser amount and the market actually gobbled it up pretty well. We didn't see that same sort of velocity on a downward move that we've seen here. So I think that, to your point, PlusToken is some of that, right? But I think largely it's the general macro uncertainty, right, that we see with a lot of the traditional markets too. And we'll get to that in BTC. We've got to hit some quick news, but there's kind of as far as PlusToken goes and what they have left, right? There's various reports of what's left out there, but I know we are getting closer and closer to that kind of being done with, where we can go ahead and move on and hopefully see a market that doesn't have a crazy -10 or -15%, move in 6 hours kind of deal.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I want to say, in my opinion, I think the PlusToken, just given of how much they moved, I don't think that really impacts the spot market for BTC, because I mean 120 million is really not much. Right. We're trading billions, just daily volume trading for BTC. So I think the PlusToken thing that doesn't really impact it. I think it's more of a macro side, like you mentioned, with the things that are going on with the economy. Well, just if you guys want to start out really quick with the tinfoil hat right away,
let's do it.
I got the fresh rumors. So think of this, in terms of like how people say Bitcoin is a store of value, and when we hit like these bad economic times, that Bitcoin should be climbing, but we're seeing Bitcoin dropping. But the interesting thing to think about is that how like Asian stock markets halt trading and halt shorting, selling their stocks, during the time when volatility picks up to the downside to minimize the downside, right? So that makes basically illiquid market for people that want to, let's say, get out of stocks, right? So they can't get out of their Asian stocks because of these restrictions. So some of these investors that might be holding Bitcoin might be selling Bitcoin as liquidity, chase. Basically, they're getting liquidity out of Bitcoin to, because they can't get out of stocks,
right?
Let's say. So, and which is weird because usually you should be actually buying Bitcoin if the stocks are falling, right? But I think it's happening because of the restrictions and certain things that you can't do to sell to get out of these stocks. It creates illiquid markets, and then you have this liquid market that's Bitcoin, and a lot of say Asian investors are holding Bitcoin and they're cashing it out as like a
that's some of the reasons I think that gold has not performed well in this crazy mania that's been happening here. Because and correct me if I'm wrong here, Dimitri, but basically what you're saying is those traders, those investment firms, right? They have these leverage positions, right? And as we know from times in the past, right, banks love to over leverage themselves. They have these leverage positions and they need margin to add to these positions, right? So what are you going to sell? Typically at this point you wouldn't sell gold, but when all of those positions are getting wrecked, those are your only options. So in this case, maybe Asia's a little tighter on the way that the stock market works, and knowing how impactful Bitcoin is in China and in Asia, it's an easy kind of push there. I could see that, and we'll get going on to quick news here. I know we get. Oop, there it is. I knew it was coming. I could feel it. But we'll come back to this, right? Because we definitely want to talk about this narrative around, whether or not Bitcoin is or isn't proving itself as a store of value. But
cool. Yeah. So let's kick off quick news. I got the first piece here. Search term Bitcoin coronavirus overtakes Bitcoin halving on Google Trends. Shocker. So I think a lot of people are trying to basically find out how is coronavirus going to impact Bitcoin, especially with the price going down. So I think that's why a lot of people are starting to, seek for validation in terms of, how to validate their long positions for the halving, and if coronavirus will impact Bitcoin, if it's an actual hedge. So that's pretty much the piece there. The next thing I got here is get up to 10% on USDT and 50% on BUSD on Binance. So
little Binance show.
Yeah, a little plug there for CZ. It's their lending services. Mike, what was the amount they said they have a limit there?
Yeah, I think it's about 30 million, 50 million across USDT and BUSD, but then they have two different kind of pockets available, essentially two different I don't even think they're time based or anything either. So the reason we wanted to cover this was because when Binance came out with these aggressive lending rates, they were never open. They would just get filled immediately. Limited, and now it seems that there's some time. So if you're a little scared in the markets right now, don't forget stablecoins can be your friend there for sure. So those are open. Evidently the darknet is open and flourishing as well. We talked about this months ago, how one particular darknet market called Empire was struggling with DDoS attacks, right? Where they basically weren't even able to function, and that was allowing for other darknet markets to come on the scene. And now, evidently, if you flash forward to today, Empire has figured it out. They're claiming that they have 2 million users, or excuse me, 1 million users, and have now been up for 2 years. Which in I imagine in the career of a darknet is a long time. Yeah, it's a lot. And as I said, those others that kind of filled in that gap while Empire was down are also doing well. So this isn't something that we obviously follow very closely, but it's I think it's an important trend to kind of just follow in general to see what is happening behind the scenes, what is happening on these darknets, as crypto is obviously a big piece of that. So we'll keep you posted there. One of our favorite kind of up-and-coming protocols, Tezos. They have officially launched their third upgrade to the protocol, Carthage. So, as a reminder, Tezos is basically a self-amending protocol that, you get enough votes, you can push through an update to the protocol or various, components of the blockchain, and And that's what they've done. So it's the third time now. Tezos has done decently well in this sell-off. I know they're kind of in free fall now, but compared to others, they've done decently well. And then finally here, I have on my side some BitMEX drama. I know you're going to get to some BitMEX revenues, which is a little more interesting. But supposedly the FCA came out in the UK, in the United Kingdom, and said that BitMEX is not authorized to be doing business in the UK, which surprise. As far as I know, BitMEX isn't really authorized to do business anywhere. They're not. They're not really regulated. There was a pretty immediate response from BitMEX that said, "Well, yeah, but we also don't market to anybody in the UK." So, what's kind of the concern there? But the reason it's brought up is that one of the narratives that a lot of people have been pushing towards the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, is that as the FATFA, the FATF, KYC and AML regulations come into place, it's going to be harder and harder for those kind of quasi-regulated exchanges, especially the derivatives exchanges like BitMEX and Bybit, to do business internationally. So this is really the first kind of bump in the road that we're seeing for them, and one that we'll obviously keep you guys posted on.
FCA is a regulatory agency that basically oversees. It's like the CFTC and for US,
but for the UK, right.
Yeah, this kind of ties in there, and I feel like this story kind of went under the radar, but the National Assembly of South Korea, basically the legislature there, pretty much passed an amendment that has brought cryptocurrency into South Korea legally, fully. So the passing of the amendment signifies the official entry of cryptocurrency trading and holding into the legal system of South Korea. So they have about a year and a half, that is the third-party exchanges and anybody dealing with cryptocurrency and trading cryptocurrency, they have about a year and a half to get compliant. This probably won't affect big exchanges, to be honest. I think most of them were kind of working to get, I would say, compliant within the regulations. But like smaller to mid-size exchanges, I think will probably have an issue. And you might see exchanges like move out of the country, because obviously like this has been going on for a little while in South Korea. I think the population base is definitely a bigger one. I think we've seen like Korea and tech in general do pretty well, but I think we had a ton of exchanges there that were kind of operating under this, amorphous kind of regulation that was happening. There wasn't any regulation, so hey, it was kind of like a situation where they could take advantage of it. So we might see like an exodus of small to mid-sized exchanges from South Korea in the future based on this regulation.
Korea incubated a lot of exchanges, and now they're kind of moving out of there. So makes sense. So speaking of exchanges, coming back to Arthur's house, BitMEX continues to just make ridiculous money, averaging roughly 1.25 million in daily revenue in 2020 thus far. So my man is making a lot of money on the platform. And if you look at it, honestly, platforms, exchanges make the most money when volatility is there. If it's up or down, it doesn't matter, as long as the price is swinging hard. And that's what we're getting right now. The volatility is there. People are hopping in, long or short, liquidated, whatnot, bro. All of it, Jesus. That's where they make money, because they make money on commission on volume.
That bell rings and you get liquidated.
Yeah, exactly. That was the liquidation bell.
Great one, Mike. Dude, he's on it. All right, we got to finish up here. Let's go. Bitcoin Cash.
Oh yeah, Bitcoin Cash miner tax. So we talked about this where they try to propose this miner tax for Bitcoin Cash nodes. It looks like that's not getting approved. Nobody really likes it anymore. Even Roger Ver came out and was like, "Hey man, I don't know about this thing." And good luck with doing this when the price is dropping. And nobody wants to hear about the tax when the price of just in crypto overall is dropping and miners are already struggling.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a really good point. I've got Initialized Capital led a funding round for Horizon Blockchain Games, which is putting out a game called Skyweaver. It's basically a trading card game, kind of akin to Gods Unchained. It's on Ethereum as well, so it'll literally be a direct competitor. $5 million was the funding round. Also Polychain Capital, Consensus, which is interesting because I believe Consensus was part of Gods Unchained, if I'm not mistaken.
Sounds
but
right.
yeah, but basically, $5 million. Horizon Blockchain Games trying to make a digital trading card game. We'll see who ends up the victor if two can exist.
Boom. Well, let's move right into the discussion section here. I know we got a little more time before that bell hits.
Oh, we got a bunch of time. Let's go.
And some good stories, some brand new stories, some updates to stories, BitGo, Justin Sun, all this fun stuff. But I'm going to start with the Supreme Court of India, which, a la South Korea, is giving us this bullish fundamental news, even as the price continues to tank. So if you've been around for a little while, back in April 2018, the Reserve Bank of India basically came out and said all banks are not allowed to offer any sort of services that interact or support digital currencies, i.e. Bitcoin, crypto, right, in any way. This was at a time when India was really kind of coming to the forefront with crypto. Obviously, they're a massive economy. I think they're the third largest economy in Asia, and certainly one of the fastest growing in the world. A lot of people look at India and say, "Hey, this is going to be the next China," right? They got so many people, and essentially what happened was on March 4th, the Supreme Court of India came out and said that was not allowed. The Reserve Bank of India cannot do that. Their decision to ban those banks is going to be overturned, and thus open up some more opportunity for those exchanges, those small businesses who are operating in blockchain or cryptocurrency within India to keep rolling on. So, good news there for sure. That's two major countries, in Asia that have now done something bullish for crypto in the past 7 days. So heading in the right direction.
Yeah, hell of a time for a first-time crypto user in South Korea and India. Just hearing about it, I'm allowed to trade, or maybe I'm allowed to get into this crypto, and just immediate dump, dude. Just they're immediately out.
Oof, yeah, buys it at 9K, wakes up the next day.
Yeah.
Well, but to be honest, man, if you look at India, Indian people are kind of used to certain distress, and especially when it comes to their fiat currency. Like that one time when basically the president came out on TV and was like, "Hey, by the way, that let's say $20 bill or some bill that he was trying to get out of circulation is not going to be a legal tender anymore tomorrow," which is like you have 8 hours basically. And that was insane, So I think in general, Indian people are kind of against the government in terms of the monetary policy and believing in their currency. So that opens up a way for them, if they can be onboarded to crypto. That could be a great thing, if we can have some really good onboarding tools that will bring more demand for crypto from all those people that are in need. They're kind of hostages of that monetary policy that India is pushing onto their people. So.
Was it BitIndia that was trying to do the whole unbanked thing in India? Was that what it was called, Mike? Were you were kind of involved in that?
That was one of many. Yeah, I wouldn't say I was involved. I got shilled a token and never did anything. So yeah, fun times.
You were the head of that project. What are you talking about?
CTO. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great that these countries are coming along with the times. I think the countries are probably figuring out that if they don't start to move quickly with this stuff, they'll get left behind very, very fast. So obviously the U.S. is coming along, but it's good to see a country of 1.2 billion, I think India has, get on board. So nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I've got this update with the Justin Sun and now Changpeng Zhao. CZ, our man CZ from Binance, is getting involved, and it looks like a slip up from him, to be honest. So obviously, you guys know about the Steam network. You know about Steemit, and the acquisition is a nice way to put it, by the Tron Foundation, and the soft fork that was going to happen, and then Justin coming in and basically taking over the network by colluding with all of these big exchanges, Binance being one of them. So it looks like Binance is stepping away, and CZ is kind of stepping away from this fray, although I think he was already burned. The reputation, or the burn to his reputation, I think has already happened. So basically, from CZ's mouth, and these are CZ's words, basically, that he thought that the takeover of the network, if you will, he was told by Justin, was a network upgrade. So that was basically pushed to their development team, and the development team reached out to CZ, said, "Hey, there's a network upgrade going on with this Steemit acquisition," and CZ, with not much due diligence, said, "Go ahead and do it." And that was basically what happened. Obviously, the fallout from everything, everyone's pissed at Binance because they're part of this hostile takeover, and CZ's kind of pulling out. So basically, they are looking to unstake a bunch of the votes that they use to help Justin Sun take over the network, at least at this point. So CZ's saying one thing, Justin's saying another. I think CZ got himself into a little bit of a pickle with this one, and is trying to come out a little bit unscathed. Although I think to the people who are astute enough to understand the situation, he was probably colluding with Justin, but now he's looking to kind of come out clean.
Yeah, that's definitely one perspective there. Before I kind of talk about that, I want to deliver some context to this, right? Because I think this has been something, this relationship between Justin Sun and CZ has been ongoing. They for a while. Obviously two massive players in the crypto space, both from Asia, right? That never really had a strong business relationship, a relationship of any kind, until Justin Sun started interacting with the Binance charity. You remember that?
Yeah.
Binance came out with the Binance charity, and Justin donated a ton of money to that, and that kind of got that ball rolling, and you started to see Binance doing more and more with Tron, just as other exchanges do. CZ doing more and more with Justin Sun, and for all of the press that Justin Sun gets, there's always seemingly some sort of fallout, right? Whether it's small, like the Polynex drama and kind of that tweet where they tweeted buy Tron and then deleted it really quickly. Much smaller
Tesla giveaways.
Yeah, the Tesla giveaways, right? I think this is a case of CZ finally getting burned by somebody who, is kind of this just walking, flame of sorts in the crypto space, right? And if you look at what CZ says, he's not technically lying, right? Because if you remember the way that this was going to happen with the previous Steemit miners was they were going to implement this soft fork, this supposedly non-contentious soft fork. And what that was going to do was going to permanently freeze Steemit Inc.'s tokens, right? So Justin Sun's
money.
Yeah, Justin Sun's money, right? Because they want to take this quote unquote decentralized network and not be involved with Tron at all. So they said, hey, as a part of this upgrade, this is what's going to happen. So I think, my most maybe naive explanation of the scenario was that Justin Sun saw this happening. He said, okay, what do I need to do to participate in this? Okay, we need all these exchanges to come on board. Goes to CZ, says, hey, here's the upgrade, right? This is what's going to happen. And then either before or after he talked to CZ about it, he realized that in the soft fork, there was this whole block of tokens happening. And seemingly kind of was like, well, shit, what am I going to do? Didn't tell any of the other people who he had asked to do the upgrade or the soft fork. And now you end with this, all these kind of ashes and definitely a burn to CZ's reputation, whether or not he kind of meant to do it, right? Whether it was on purpose. I don't think it was, but I can totally see how people could see this, and now he's just coming back and saying, oh, we're with the community and blah 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 and all this. So
yeah, CZ's doing the rollback.
Yeah, that's fair, man. He's been a part of that situation before, where he's been in the news in a negative aspect. But go ahead, Dima.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I like the last statements there from CZ, where he talks about, well, Justin could have done this way better by first communicating with the Steem community, explaining to them, like, here's how we can progress together. This is a benefit for both of us, align the interests, instead of just going out with the bang and be like, hey, listen, I just bought this, man. Like, what are you guys doing? And then, like making this such an aggressive acquisition. And we know that community is huge in crypto, and if you start messing around with it, then you derail that, then it's going to go down the hill there. So I completely agree with CZ on that point. But it's kind of interesting that you mentioned that well, CZ, you agree kind of with CZ where he didn't know and he kind of got put into this trap. I think it's just he's kind of making an excuse there, where he knew this, because what really we want to see is that if somebody who suggested this software update from Binance side, from the dev side, should be fired. Like, hey, listen, here's the guy who messed up. He didn't tell me the whole story.
Okay, scapegoat.
Yeah. We need to burn somebody, man.
This is
the Russian.
Yeah. Shame.
CZ needs a fall guys, basically what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I mean, CZ's had run-ins with situations before, like you're talking about, so that's where my mindset goes. He hasn't been clean in the past. It's amazing to see the crypto community kind of get galvanized by this, because like certainly Steam's big, but they've fallen off, over time. To see this make like CoinDesk and Decrypt and everything like daily, I think it has more to do with probably Justin Sun than Steemit itself. But no, they're doing. It looks like they'll figure it out, man. We'll see what CZ does end up doing. He says next time, I think they asked him how the episode had affected the way he would work with Sun in the future, and CZ said not much other than the next upgrade that he asked for. We will have a bit more due diligence done and a few more questions asked. So we will see. Yeah. Kieran's in the chat. He's talking about, I think we were talking about India earlier, lifting that crypto ban, and Dimitri was talking about the notes needing to get, I think, replaced or something like that. The situation where so 500
not replaced, actually taken out of circulation.
Taken out of circulation. So Kieran goes $500 and $1,000 or 1,000 INR notes, which is like a $6 and $12 equivalent. So it looks like he has some experience with that situation or knows about it. Also, Wazir X was put in the chat by Kieran. I think that's an India crypto exchange. So
yeah, that's one that Binance launched via IEO.
Oh yeah.
Up like 200%, or at least it was. Oh, I don't know where it's
what a coincidence. Binance buys this, and then suddenly the regulations start going the right way, which is like, it's interesting to always see how like the crypto people are lobbying these politicians now to get into like to get better like structure for regulations.
Yep. Somebody had the inside scoop.
Yeah,
for sure. That's what happens. Indian Exchange knows something's coming. Perfect timing. Get ready, CZ. We're gonna pump it to the moon.
Yep. All right. So moving right along. BitGo gets in the lending game. Now we know the lending game is heating up. It's been heating up for a while. It's doing real well. We had that podcast with Alex Mashinsky, Celsius. They do custody with BitGo, and BitGo in general. They've been around for some time. They've been doing great in terms of the custody.
They did. Custody, I think past tense.
Really?
I would bet and I'll let you keep going, but I bet they don't do custody with BitGo for much longer.
Oh really? Yeah, probably, because I did see some tweets from Mashinsky. So I want to hear what you say about that. But yeah, BitGo basically started lending business, and they have got let me see, 150 million, which is small potatoes for now. In terms of open loans, compared to like Celsius, like it has like 4 to 6 billion, I think, right now. They do like lending for Bitcoin, ETH, Litecoin, and stable coins. I checked the rates. You can't really check the rates on their website. They don't disclose that. It looks like it's more geared towards this institutional traders that are looking to get into the lending game and do big amounts, and I'm pretty sure they negotiate probably the percentages for lending and borrowing. So I think that's why they don't post them. It depends more on how much let's say collateral you provide to get a loan, or how much are you lending in terms of the amount, for how long you want to lend it for. I think it's going to be open to that to determine the rate. And for those guys that basically don't understand this lending game, is all these entities that offer lending and borrowing, they basically collect the profit on the spread between. So like you have the guys that are lending, they're getting the interest rate, and the guys who are borrowing, they're paying the interest rate, and the spread between the two interest rates is what the entity actually makes money on. And Alex explained that really well in an interview. And the important part is that what you want to look for is for that spread to be tiny, right? Because you don't want the entities to really make a huge amount of money while offering this service.
How does the lending and borrowing services in crypto, how are those affected by what's happening with all the rate cuts in the traditional markets? How, like, do they then work like their rates differently? How does that actually like play itself out? What is the relationship there?
Well, I mean, it's still based on supply and demand. In terms of actually getting this interest rate. But in traditional markets, when you have interest rates falling like crazy, and you have the stable coins interest rates that are like
8%, 9%.
Yeah, 8%. Like it's a no-brainer, right? So that's going to continue to flourish, and you see that by like BitGo's like starting this stuff because they see how much potential is in it. So I think it's huge, especially when you have we're basically going to get to zero rates here in the US soon,
right?
Because of how the economy is going. So, and that's just going to boost all this stuff even further. So I think it's a positive thing.
Gotcha. Okay. So that could kind of drive adoption into those platforms. People are kind of like fleeing to something that is actually offering a strong percentage. Okay.
Yeah, it's going to happen slowly, obviously, right? Like it's not going to be pension funds jumping into USDT or BUSD or anything, but maybe you have some family offices put 0.1% into 9% quote unquote stable coin. But I mean, the thing that I wanted to talk about was that tweet from Mashinsky, right? Where I think I responded to another one whenever the news broke before he quoted the tweet, but well-known ETH contributor was basically like, "Oh, Mashinsky's getting squeezed, like he's in trouble. BitGo's offering lending," and Mashinsky quoted it and was basically shitting on the BitGo team, saying that they had launched lending over a year ago, and that this was because this was all they had to show. They were doing a terrible job. And he went on to basically say that's what they do in a day, and this was all they could get in a year. So I'm big Mashinsky ain't getting squeezed.
Well, yeah, he was saying specifically how show us the books, show us the numbers, and obviously you can see that on Celsius, all the numbers and stats on there because they're very transparent.
He had the clip ready for BlockFi, and he had the clip ready for BitGo. He had it for all his competitors. So we didn't have the stats on the spot, so we couldn't kind of refute anything that he was saying. But I absolutely love that interview, man. Mashinsky did a great job. I think we do have to stop this episode really quick. We have to pause the episode because Scott Harris Firestone is in the chat.
Ooh.
He joined up. He said, "Yo." And then the next thing he said was, "I lost $1,000 or 1,000 EOS because of this crash. I got liquidated."
Pour one out. Pour one out for our homies, man.
Take a drink.
Sorry, Scott. Moment of silence.
Gotcha.
That's tough, man. I'll never forget you doing that to Gall in the ICO offices.
Look up. Do you want to tell that story? Please tell it. Scott, I'm sorry. He got liquidated on Equilibrium, he says. It happened to us all. It happened to me. It probably happened to a couple of these guys. But tell that story, Mike.
I've been licked before, yeah. So there was, whenever we were rocking and rolling at ICO Alert, there was one guy, I think we're having him on the podcast later, so we'll have him tell his side of the story then. But Zach Gall, he was going hard in the paint on EOS when it was well above $10. We were all super bullish, but he was really going hard. And at some point, as we all have before, he got liquidated on pretty much everything he had, or a lot of what he had in EOS. And everybody was very much hands off, okay, like this is rough, man. Like you just lost a good chunk of change. Guy walks in the office and Q plays taps on iTunes. Yeah, just completely takes his face and rubs it deper into the sand. Oh man, it was bad.
True friends will do that.
That's true.
Fair.
And I remember his words. When he said when he was in that position, when he was in a buy position, I was like, wait, what is your stop loss? And he was like, man, my liquidation price is $6. Ain't never gonna get there. those are the last words of every trader. It's never gonna get to my liquidation price. Guess what? It will. Yeah, the market is known to do stuff like that. So
be careful out there.
Yeah. Zach Lee helped me get liquidated as well. So I was like, he's exactly. I think I forgot what exchange we were longing EOS before the voice announcement. That's my story. That's my liquidation story. Basically, we were longing EOS before the voice announcement, and it like hit my liquidation price and then pumped. To what I thought it would do. So got liquidated and then it pumped to where, anyways, $8 something like $8.15, something like that.
Well, hopefully some better news coming in 2020. I know it's been a shellacking here as of late, but believe it or not, there are now less than 10,000 BTC blocks left until the halving. So I think it's every 210,000 blocks. Is when Bitcoin goes through its halving. So, kind of an easily misunderstood thing, right? It's not necessarily based on a single date, right? It's not that, hey, every May 14th, every 4 years or something, Bitcoin halves. No, it has to do with the blocks, right? So the question I kind of wanted to pose to you guys here as we get closer and closer, it should be right around 2 months now, maybe less, until the Bitcoin halving, where obviously the amount of Bitcoin that miners are going to be getting is going to be cut in half. At this rate, is it going to be bullish or bearish for Bitcoin? Understanding global, macroeconomic sentiment, Bitcoin price now. Q, I'll send it to you first.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, the bullish sentiment that you get from a Bitcoin halving, I feel like is completely off the table, right? Like I feel like Bitcoin is barely hanging on to the store value narrative that we've been kind of clawing at for like the longest time. I think it's like, to Dimitri's point, I think there's like a lot of things that play into that with illiquidity and the traditional markets and things like that. But we're at this point barely hanging on to that narrative of being a store of value, kind of like a digital gold. So as far as the halving is concerned, I just hope that, we don't get this massive centralization after the halving when these smaller miners are operating on small margins, it gets cut in half and then they're gone, right? Like that's what I'm worried about. So I think it's completely off the table.
This is not good before we come to the Ukrainian bear. This is not good. What's your thought?
Yeah,
what's your bearish?
No, I agree with Key in terms of the consolidation in the mining sector. That would be not good for decentralization. But actually, to be honest, I think that just right now, the way the market is in the panic mode, that panic mode tends to not last as long as you might think, right? So we're right now, looking at the market and everything's selling off, 10 years, crashing, and all these things are happening like a ridiculous speed, and right. But that's not going to be like, every day, every month, every week, right? So we have to understand that when the panic hits, it hits hard, it hits quick. But I think things will start settling down before the halving, and that's when we're going to start, going back up in price, because we've already purged through a lot of longs when we dropped, as far as we did now. Maybe we will drop even more. But overall, stocks are down 15%, but Bitcoin is up for the year, still. So I think actually the Ukrainian bear is actually saying that, no need to panic. I think we're still, going to be fine, in terms of where things are. It's just like right now things are very volatile and very sensitive. And we'll see where the coronavirus is going to be, down the road in 2 months too.
What did you guys think of? I forgot the guy's name. I don't know how to say it, but it's like Rural Paul, the guy who was on Off the Chain, or the Pomp now. Did you guys see the rebrand?
Brutal name, dude. Yeah, dude, change it back.
Yeah, ugh. I get like attaching a brand to his actual name because that helps branding, but yeah, terrible. Anyways, what did you guys think of that episode, man? I thought it was phenomenal.
I love it. Yeah,
I thought it was really good. I think it's important when you're listening to people like that to understand their perspectives and how they make money, right? Like, this is a guy who makes money off of basically black swan events, right? And clearly does a very good job of it. I mean, he's talking about buying houses in Miami and in Spain just as a way to kind of hold cash, right? So he's done well for himself. He's obviously very, very well known, right? But comparing your trades or your investments, or even just kind of the way you see yourself as a crypto guy or general finance guy, it's very hard to to compare anything you do to him because it's such a niche strategy, right? It's like Peter Schiff has something
He's immersed
similar.
in it. Yep.
Yeah, like it's day in, day out. They're looking at indicators that for global markets, we don't even know what they mean or what the acronym stands for, right? So I thought it was fantastic, but I think it's important to kind of keep that in mind when listening to these guys. But as far as the Bitcoin halving goes, right? This is kind of what I had thought was going to happen. I think it's the velocity of it, right? The speed and the size of the dump has increased because of the macroeconomic events. But typically what you see with these halvings is if you look back at the data, and I know you've talked about this on Dimitri's desk a little bit, and we have here, you get all of this hype, you get all of this marketing, which a lot of we haven't even seen yet from your CNBCs and whatnot, because they're talking about the traditional markets. But you get all of this news, and you kind of get people in, and they get excited, and then the market just, either sometime before or after the halving tanks, right? And it kind of, everybody capitulates. Sorry, Scott, they get liquidated, right? It's kind of like the classic crypto market juke of faking you out one way and going the other. But it's
dude, we're down 8% on S&P right now. 2,000. Wait, is that? Oh no, on Dow, 2,000 points.
2,000 points as the update on the Dow here. But yeah. So my point being, and I'll finish up here, is that I think we're going to be okay. I think fundamentals around Bitcoin are continuously improving, right? Hash rate is continuously improving. I think the biggest risk to Bitcoin was in the coronavirus in China. And now that China is moving north and away from those issues, I think we're going to be okay. I think China will drive a lot of this narrative. And as long as we don't break broader trend lines, I think we'll be okay, and we'll see some really nice growth towards the end of the year. But who knows?
It looks like HK is getting like an Andrew Yang stimulus as well. They're all getting I don't know if it's $1,000, but if you're an HK resident, you're getting a certain amount of dollars. Can someone look that up real quick? But I think that could be a stimulus for cryptocurrency in general, man. Like HK, if you live in HK, you're probably exposed a little bit. It's like saying you're in New York City, like a little bit about crypto,
100%,
but or at least some people. So maybe they use some of that, put it in crypto, put it in things that they're interested in.
Well, I'm gonna pull the Joe Rogan here real quick and go and use the restroom.
Oh god,
PlusToken sell off.
Okay,
I called this before the podcast where you were bogeying. I was like, I'm drinking kombucha and taking vitamins. This
it's not a good combo.
All right, well, hurry back, Mike.
But yeah, I was gonna say in regards to what you said about that fiscal stimulus, right? So that's actually a pretty big talk right now in U.S. as well, where the central banks are basically running out of tools to help the economy, and now it's like, okay, we have to revert to the fiscal stimulus. And we've had something similar like that back in the day when like Bush was around. We had like a $700 tax
break.
Yeah, exactly. Which is all right, but like this stimulus has happened before in like Japan too, when they were struggling, and it's actually not that effective. It's weird because what ended up happening. So the reason why they do this stimulus is because the velocity of money, the movement of money in the economy slows down and halts, right? In order to stimulate that, you just give people money and they start spending it, right? So when people get the money, they have to spend that money in order for this system to work. But if you have people that get the money and they just hold the money, then that whole stimulus doesn't work. So that happened in Japan, and that didn't really provide like a positive outcome. And actually, I think China did that once as well, where they did same thing, but they gave it an expiration date. They gave like some kind of like a coupon notes. Basically, here's like this note that has X amount of value, monetary value, and you have to use it within a certain amount of time frame, right? Which is
they set a time limit.
Yeah, expiration on it, right?
Wow.
Which is like, okay, that's going to push people to do it. And guess what? Majority of them did not spend it. It's insane.
So what happened? It just poofed?
It just expired. Yeah. So, but like on the surface, it sounds like it didn't work. But I bet if you talk to somebody who's dealing it at a time, maybe, at a time when you brought that voucher to some merchant and they'd be like, hell no, man, that thing is not redeemable. Like good luck for me to like redeem it from the government. Maybe there was some roadblocks there, right? That we don't know the nuances behind the story there. So fiscal stimulus can be tricky. If you get that wrong, that might be a whole waste of money,
What I'm most interested with that fiscal stimulus like kind of policy or that model is how they're kind of hoping that they give these people money. So say like $1,000 and that it goes into the traditional economy or just like economies in general, and that moving into cryptocurrency and in a model that's kind of made to not help the traditional government systems or traditional banking systems at all, right? Like it's essentially like, okay, give us this money and we'll put it towards something that has nothing to do with you. So, but anyways, we got 1-2 in the chat, hurting me a little bit. It looks like EOS broke that $3 level. I don't know where the support levels were, but $3 is tough to look at. So 290, he says, my dream has come true. EOS at 290. Ouch, that kind of hurts me mid podcast. I'll look to recover.
Go to the back.
Yeah. I'm just like, Kieran's talking about 27,619. I don't know what he's referencing there. Kieran, what are you referencing there so that we could hit that? We already talked about PlusToken, so we don't really have to. Scott said it hurts me less. So we already talked about PlusToken sell-off. If we have any other, topics around that, I think we can. I think we really did just talk about it in breaking news, though. So
it's pretty straightforward. Yeah. I think. It's one of those things where it's hard to really prove if that's the full reason that we get the dump. Mm-hmm. Like we said, I think it's a lot of different things here. But the final point on this kind of crypto / macro discussion that we had is that this is so reminiscent to me of fundamentals not equaling price. Mm-hmm. And I imagine in the future, we're going to look back at this and say, holy hell, this is and was the most perfect scenario for Bitcoin, right? Where whether it's the coronavirus or something else that kind of is an issue for the economy, an economy that is already over leveraged, right? That has issues with debt, that has, corporate debt is at its highest ever, right? So any sort of kind of pin to pop this bubble gives cryptocurrency the opportunity to not just show itself from a price standpoint, but the new narrative is going to be monetary policy, right? Yep. So gold is not performing like it should be, right? So I'm not super worried that Bitcoin isn't, but that's going to be the new narrative, right? You can already see Pomp talking about it. You can already see some of these other talking heads mentioning it, where they're going, oh, no, right? Bitcoin isn't a hedge against stocks. It's a hedge against poor monetary policy, right? And aggressive borrowing and all of this kind of debt-laden kind of economic actions that we're seeing here. So I think it, it's going to shift a little bit. People are going to really understand that, okay, well, yes, while this is designed to be a store of value, well, this is designed to be a hedge, it's still only 11 years old, right? And it's going to take some shifting of some narratives, and it's going to take a lot of pain before we get to that final point.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a good time to kind of explain to everyone the difference between cryptocurrency and Bitcoin as well, right? Because I think like you're talking about Bitcoin, and on this podcast we're talking about a ton of different currencies. And I think in times of economic crisis and this global kind of meltdown and coronavirus, if the world was kind of coming undone, coronavirus definitely accelerated that process. But at that time, and we're talking about Bitcoin now, who gives a shit about number 50 on CoinMarketCap? Like, that's the situation that I'm scared about, right? Like, I'm a big holder of EOS, so I understand the Bitcoin narrative that you're talking about and how that kind of changes, and maybe it even becomes part of some monetary policy in the future. Maybe this is its moment, right? But for everything else down the line, past maybe Ethereum, right, with what we see on DeFi, it's like, Jesus, man, like in times like these, good luck, because nobody is risking that shit. That's incredibly risk on. So we'll see.
What are you saying? That people are not going to play dice anymore on these platforms? just because of coronavirus, bro. Everybody's gonna be sitting home away from coronavirus and playing dice and
when
spinning
bet
the
dice stimulus.
Yeah.
Well, Dice needs to like market to China during that, or HK during that stimulus, man. Just have things up all around the city. Put your $1,000 here, but we'll see.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Cash is king right now for sure. Either that or excess power is king. We're going to move out of the kind of discussion section, talk Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, EOS, and a little more Binance. But the first story is one of the coolest stories I've seen in some time. I think this is was very much overlooked when it came out. I didn't see a ton of people talking about this, but in a normal market, I think this would have been massive news in the same way South Korea and India and their bullish events would have been massive news. But essentially in upstate New York, a power plant has been using electricity to mine Bitcoin, but on a very large, basically industrial scale. This Green Ridge generation is up in the Finger Lakes, and they have now nearly 7,000 mining rigs. They're obviously using electricity that's generated on site via this power plant, and they've been able to mine an average about 5.5 Bitcoins every day, which at the time of the article was $50,000. It's probably a bit less now. But either way, right, they're basically using a system that already exists, that's already profitable, that's already providing all of this power for people, and using it to mine Bitcoin, right? It's pretty straightforward. I'm honestly kind of surprised it took this long for a lot of these power plant types to do this. Maybe they've been doing it for a long time, and this is just kind of the news now coming out. Obviously, it takes a little while for 7,000 mining rigs to get up and going, but I thought this was super cool and super bullish when it comes to Bitcoin kind of moving mainstream.
So they get a special price for that energy that's left over, or because we know that mining is heavy on electricity, and the price is pretty much the king for electricity that determines of if it's profitable or not. Usually, these type of mining places tend to set up in cities or countries where energy gets subsidized by the government,
right?
But looks like that's not the case, right? It's just
so interestingly enough, there's a company that owns this power plant called Atlas Holdings, right? So I think they have a lot to do with it.
Okay.
Basically this facility, if you look at their capacity, they can do 106 megawatts. And the server farm that they have is doing 14 megawatts. So while that is a lot of energy, right, that basically says that the equivalent electricity could power over 11,000 average homes in the US, or in this case in the Finger Lakes. So it's still significant, but it shows you the power of the power plant, and basically the fact that at certain times during the year, traditionally they were using a lot of energy and not using a lot of energy, maybe based on the kind of the influx of people to the Finger Lakes and them going back to where they normally live. But now with Bitcoin mining, they're able to operate year round, right? And they're able to kind of play price peaks and all this other fun stuff with Bitcoin. So it's a pretty short article. There's not much to it there, but I bet this is a trend we continue to see.
Awesome. Let's move into Litecoin.
Just really quick, I wanted to mention that the power plant generates energy from natural gas. And gas is up 3.57%.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
Yep.
So anyway, moving on here to Litecoin. Litecoin has always kind of been this BTC testnet, if you will, right? A lot of times we have seen Litecoin come out with things that then Bitcoin comes out with in the following months or years. So interestingly enough, Litecoin, on the other hand, is estimated to launch a Mimblewimble testnet. So we talked a little bit in the past about how one of the Bitcoin improvement proposals includes some privacy features. Those privacy features are not Mimblewimble, but those are supposed to go live hopefully towards the end of this year. And it seems that Litecoin is kind of planning on going a different way by utilizing Mimblewimble. Mimblewimble is a newer privacy technology. It's one that Beam and some of these others use that have admittedly had their issues with how private it can be. At the end of the day, privacy networks still can suffer from network effect issues if they're not large enough. But interesting to see Litecoin kind of going that way. They're estimating that it will launch right around the beginning of September, and this obviously comes via a Litecoin improvement proposal. So haven't really heard a lot about Litecoin. I mean, it was pretty much dead in the water. So if you're a Litecoin fan, if you're a Charlie Lee kind of guy, this is certainly bullish for Litecoin.
Yeah, I would love to get somebody from like the Litecoin Foundation or some kind of like organization that's linked to Litecoin on, because I would even love to know the usage of Litecoin at this point. I don't really know like the usage of Litecoin at all, to be honest. Do we even have like usage and volume? And
I think that's kind of the elephant in the room with Litecoin. Is it's like many others, while it's top 10, there's just not a lot of action.
It's fast though.
It is very fast because there's nobody else.
Yeah, exactly. On the highway,
Gotcha. All right.
I just like the Mimble Wimble word. It's like, that's a great name. Mimble Wimble. Yeah.
Do you like the NFL jersey colors too? Whenever you watch football,
yeah,
you cheer for the blue team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I like it, man. Well, anyway, what's going on? The world of DEXs seems to be
Ethereum. Yes, we're hopping into the Ethereum section now. So, ETH decentralized exchanges have hit an all-time high of 372 million in February in terms of trading volume. So, DEXs, are basically getting quite a bit of volume. And I've already talked about it. Overall, just exchanges are seeing, pop in volumes just because of the volatility that we have. But the interesting part about the DEXs is that, it's still compared to the, traditional exchanges that we deal with, 372 million that, we have DEX that traded here recently, is still, relatively small, sure, right? But it is the all-time high for them at the moment. So we see DEX is just picking up in volume. And I think it has to do with the fact that certain tokens are not necessarily listed on other exchanges, but they're listed on DEXs that are attracting, people maybe to sell, buy, and whatnot during these volatile times. And just in general, when volatility picks up, the volumes are going to pick up because, a lot of people might be getting wrecked, and whatnot, So I think, it's seeing DEXs following or with the volume pickup, as we see volume pickup on regular exchanges and volatility pickup is a good thing, because it shows that the platform is working as intended, and the matching engine is there, and they're seeing that volume represent that.
So I wonder how this plays into the DeFi hacks that are happening, because DYDX obviously made the news for its hack. I wonder how that affects the volumes that are reported here, because it looks like it's coming directly from DApp.com. I wonder if that spike in volume had anything to do with hitting that all-time high.
That was going to be my thought, was that DeFi has a lot to do with this. Uniswap is a decentralized exchange just absolutely taken off. You see some of the other smaller ones like DYDX do the same. I know IDEX has been doing decently well as well. The company behind behind Layer1, the podcast, Sutler Ventures, it runs a node for IDEX, and the price, I think I was saying before we started the podcast, is up like 120% while on that exchange token, while everything else is obviously blood red. So something's going on.
You guys heard it here first. IDEX token is a digital store of value. All right, guys. We got a lot of Ethereum news. We've got EOS. We've got Binance to finish up. I think Mike has to go here in a little over an hour, but we want to kind of finish up closer to like a 30-minute time frame. So we got a lot of good news here. Let's do it.
Yeah, for sure. I'll run through two here. I'm going to actually start with the Prog POW. Prog POW, or programmatic proof of work, is something we talked about last week quite a bit. This was basically a proposal from the Ethereum core devs. It's been around for a long time, right? It's not a brand new proposal. But the Ethereum core devs, many of them wanted to basically push this through. And again, as a recap, programmatic proof of work was a way to ensure that when ETH 1.0 transitioned to ETH 2.0 with the staking, that the proof of work blockchain in ETH 1.0 would not be overtaken and centralized by miners. So programmatic proof of work basically made sure that those ASIC miners were not able to function after proof of work was implemented. So it would be all GPUs, and the concern was basically that this upgrade had not gone through the due diligence that it needed to. It was very risky, especially to a lot of the DeFi world in Ethereum, which is pretty much the main narrative for ETH these days. So anyway, there was a big kind of community call or developer call on the 6th of this month. Went on for about 3 hours, 2 hours of which they talked about proof of work. And it seems that they're 100% going to push it back. And that number two, they're going to change the name, change some things about it, and basically try to get people more involved in this process and more comfortable with programmatic proof of work. I think the new name they're calling it is ETH hash 2.0. ETH hash is the current proof of work algorithm that's used. So anyway, that is kind of slowing down. Wanted to recap you guys there. The other interesting thing here, it's more consensus in the news here, but it's consensus EY, Ernst & Young, there, if you're not familiar with them, and then Microsoft are all working alongside Ethereum to come up with what they're calling baseline protocol. So it's consensus, Ernst & Young, Microsoft, Chainlink, MakerDAO, AMD, and about 9 other firms who are basically trying to launch this baseline protocol and ensure that enterprises can utilize the public version of Ethereum. So there's always been these various private blockchains. Quorum is a big one from JP Morgan that has exist kind of alongside the public chain of ETH as a private chain. But these various firms, both inside and outside of Ethereum, see the benefit in bringing enterprises to the public chain. In order to do that, basically the baseline protocol will allow for privacy and speed and a handful of other things so that those enterprises can use it. But, pretty interesting there. There has got to be so much going on behind the scenes with ETH right now, both from a funding standpoint, from a business standpoint, from a development standpoint. I mean, I can't imagine what some of these core devs days look like or what Vitalik's days look like, because ETH just keeps rolling on.
It's crazy because you have this development that continues to grow rapidly on this network, and at the same time they're trying to update it to make it better.
Yeah.
And it becomes where it's like, well, you have this new infrastructure that's being developed, the new sectors that are being developed on Ethereum, and then these guys are like, wait a minute, we're still catching up to figure out how we're gonna fix this issue and to roll out ETH 2.0, and now this stuff is blowing up. It's like they're trying to play catch up, which makes sense why it's getting delayed and so on, because the worst thing you can do is push this update and everything just goes to hell.
Yeah,
so
we don't want that.
Yeah, we always use that kind of analogy of working on a plane as it's flying, in a sense, and that's literally exactly what's happening. But I think I've been more of a fan of ETH. I think we've had more Ethereum developers and Ethereum I guess founders that are building on Ethereum, their platforms and stuff. We've had that more on the podcast recently. You can even tell, when we go through our schedules and then we say, okay, so out of the last 6, we've had 4 Ethereum founders on, or founders that are building on Ethereum. I'm more bullish on Ethereum than I probably have ever been. I think that DeFi obviously has done a good stuff, although there's some people that say kind of that's been fundamentally flawed with a lot of this Oracle and front running and the hacks that have happened. But I think that the community is the strongest point. Ethereum is going to continue to be one of the strongest cryptocurrencies or blockchain networks into the foreseeable future, just because they've hit that tipping point, if you will, with grassroots. I'm extremely bullish on it. Not that you were asking, but
when institutionalization of ETH, that's what I want.
Well, we're the next topic, my friend.
Ooh.
Here. Yes. So we got this piece here that's super interesting to me, because we got Morningstar that rates the first Ethereum security in 40 million fat burger deal. So for those guys that don't know Morningstar, it's huge in traditional finance. They do a lot of due diligence and ratings for securities. And have you heard of Fat Burger?
I have. I was
Have
so
you had
excited for you to talk about Fat Burger, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I know you don't know what it is.
well, what do you mean? It's a fat burger. So basically, this fat brands that's actually traded on Nasdaq. They offered they did a 40 million capital infusion using the STOs, basically Ethereum chain. And that was basically rated by Morningstar through their rating system, basically. And they got, I think, double B and a B rating on their raise for this 40 million that ended up, being an STO on Ethereum, which is huge, like this is a pretty big milestone, when it comes to STOs.
Yeah, it's a real business, right? A giant business, obviously. I haven't had Fat Burger. I don't know where it's located in the US, but it just immediately reminds me of like a Whataburger or an In-N-Out or one of these. Is Shake Shack, I'm sure it's got a cult following, but like I said, real company, but then also at the same time a real ratings agency,
right?
That is evidently now comfortable with the way that they're going about doing this. So huge.
Yeah, and if you take a look at their stock price, which is FAT, it had a fat dump, and it's trading at the 52-week low today. So
Jesus.
That I think that was pretty good news. In terms of SEOs.
Yeah, that's obviously not in reaction to this story at all. This is just they're at a 52-week low because the rest of the market's at a 52-week low. Yeah, correct.
I just wanted to say fat dump.
Okay, got him. All right. Well, I've got the next story here. It's just going to be a quick update because I believe I'm going to call the timer on myself here. Hold on. Minute 30. No, I got a little bit. So Spencer Dinwiddie, we talked about this. We've talked about this NBA player for a little while, but basically he had plans to tokenize his contract on Ethereum so that he could, get all this cash up front and then pay out interest to, token holders. Essentially, you had to be an accredited investor to take part, but he was basically securitizing his NBA contract. Well, the NBA pushed back. They didn't like the dividend setup. So he's actually working now through this company called Dream Fan Shares, which he's associated with. They're actually working with a new broker-dealer, Tritorian. They were working with North Capital Private Securities. I don't know. This is from Decrypt, and they say that they don't know the extent to which North Capital is still involved. But basically, they're going to go back, restructure a little bit of the deal, and then try to attack this again with a new broker dealer. So Dream Fan Shares will be now working with Tritorian Capital. So interesting.
I wonder if he didn't get a lot of demand.
I don't know.
I mean, terrible timing, obviously, with the broader market. Have you been watching him? Do you watch Dinwiddie play? Is he like playing poorly now or something?
No, I don't think so. I mean, he was an all-star, I believe, like last year. But I don't watch the NBA regular season because it's like utter trash unless like two of the top 3 or 4 teams are playing. I think he got pushed back from the NBA. Like that's the whole deal. Like he was planning on launching it this way. The NBA was like, we don't like this setup. So now he's working with this new broker dealer to try to restructure under something that like falls within regulations. So that's my idea. You can put on your tinfoil hat and think about whatever ideas you got, but it looks like just based on that he's doing that. So this seems like a lot of times when I'm like bringing up this story, it's kind of like this seems kind of funky, right? Like this is just a funny story to bring up, but I think you will see more of this as we go forward, and you'll see more like interaction between players and their fans. That's what I'm excited for.
Yeah, and to your point about it being funky, right? It just seems to me, and I obviously don't have a ton of details, right? It's super tinfoil hatty, but it seems to me like there are more issues behind the scenes with it, especially if that first broker dealer is pulling out, unless they just couldn't sell any of them, and Dinwiddie was like, "Well, screw you guys, right? Why am I paying you if you're not selling any of these tokens basically,
Yeah.
and move on there. So maybe that's it. But it just seemed like so smooth. Like it was so now, hiccups happen, I guess.
It's interesting to view it from like the sports perspective of like being a GM or being a coach. Like there's incentive model basis for these professional players, right? Like as you go on, you receive more, or it's not like you receive all this money up front. Sure, you have a signing bonus. It's great. But essentially he's getting most of his entire non-guarantee or guaranteed money up front. So what is the incentive other than, I guess, the back end of that contract, which teams don't have to, honor at all? Like you see, the guaranteed money is what players are focused on.
Right.
Like the guarantee that he can get traded or he can get cut and they don't have to pay him shit. But if he gets all this guaranteed money up front, what is his incentive to play well? Like maybe it comes up in like the 5% where he's not putting 5% work. I don't think he's going to fall off a cliff and just eat, fat burgers all day long, but he could essentially like not play as well and it wouldn't matter. But
yeah.
Anyways, I'm going to move on to EOS here. Slow week for EOS, guys. We didn't have much news, but EOS Nation, and we're going to have them on tomorrow, which will then be released on Wednesday. They're going to talk about this, so I'm not going to talk about this too much, but they launched a proxy. And the reason I put this in there is because I want to have a larger discussion maybe on proxies. We have a little bit of time left, I think. Mike, how much longer do you think we're at 2:40? What do you got?
Yeah, let's go to like 3. We got another 20
okay,
minutes.
We got another 20 minutes. Okay. Well, EOS Nation launched their proxy. Basically, they're launching this proxy in response to a lot of proxies and a lot of block producers maybe not being as transparent as they should be. Like they talk about hidden fees that maybe voters have to pay that they never see. It doesn't like come out of EOS that you stake, obviously, but like fees that you would get back or rewards that you would get back, maybe a 0.001% is taken out and then paid to the block producer or the proxy that is then voting for the block producer. All of these can be kind of nefarious. So EOS Nation, which is absolutely the best block producer on EOS right now, like hands down. They are awesome. Can't wait to have them on tomorrow. Started their own proxy, and I'll talk about some of the features here. Optimized user experience. So advanced smart contracts allow users to simply vote for our proxy and receive rewards 24 hours later. No charge to block producers, so they're literally giving 100% of that instead of maybe taking it for themselves. And then obviously the stakers get some from what the block producers would make. Innovation, maybe not. Number 4 is keep many key independent block producers teams above the pay threshold. So again, and this is what I want to talk about here coming up, but I really like proxies as proof of stake moves forward, because what proxies allow people to do is almost like a representative in maybe Congress or House of Representatives. You're actually taking the stake that you have in the network or the vote that you have in the network and pushing that towards someone that's more involved. That on the day-to-day basis, they're on the front lines knowing exactly what's happening and they can use your tokens the right way, right? As opposed to you who are like, I don't know exactly what's going on, right? Like the average user doesn't know what's going on like we would.
Right.
So
it's hard to follow 24/7 for sure.
Yeah, we'll talk, and I'll get to that at the end. But transparent rewards, so they're going for that transparent APR. No voter decay, which is really cool. There's voter decay, obviously, when you stake on a lot of different block producers. So you have to like re-up your vote to get all of the 100% that you would. And then easy accounting, daily receipts are sent to assist users in jurisdictions that require tax reporting and things like that. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, that's awesome. I think the key discussion around the proxies, right, is that future of proof of stake networks. Interestingly enough, ETH hasn't had to battle that like a lot of the other proof of stake or delegated proof of stake or hybrid delegated proof of stake, right? There are so many different consensus protocols out there now, but they all still to some degree have been suffering from network effect, where as we saw with Steem and as we've seen with IOST and a lot of other smaller networks, where this consensus mechanism comes out and this brand new project comes out, and basically the goal is to direct votes, right? Direct tokens to the block producers, to the nodes that are doing the most for the network, right? Because then theoretically, those that are doing the most for the network will have more rewards, thus more resources. They can reinvest in the network. The network will grow. Token price grows. Right now, it all comes full circle with everybody getting rewarded for doing what they're supposed to. But the issue, as many protocols have seen, is that there doesn't seem to be enough retail or just general kind of like single user interaction happening with these blockchains, right? Too many people are holding their tokens on exchanges. Not enough people are doing the research around which block producers are the best for the network or which proxies are the best for the network. So to me, the proxies act as a way to, like you said, right, be that kind of leader, be that proxy, right, for you as a voter, and hopefully can get large enough on a network like EOS where they actually have some significant say in the way that things work. Because clearly the model of brand new proof of stake or hybrid proof of stake network being a network for the people of the people has not panned out like we've seen, because there's not enough users. There's not enough people out there to compete with the exchanges who have millions or hundreds of millions of tokens. So proxies for me, all in all, a good thing.
Yeah, the model, and I don't mean to cut you off. You were going to say something, Dimitri, but the model is working as prescribed, right? Like it is, but the problem is the voter education, right? And that I don't think that ever will be fixed. Like we can sit here pie in the sky. It's like, well, if we teach voters what their tokens mean, maybe they won't hold it on exchanges, yada yada yada. But yeah, I think this was good. I think proxies are going to be the future of proof of stake systems, man. I think with social media influence, with brands and things like this, one person could, like, for example, Brock Pierce has his proxy. He's able to interact with his community through social media, gain a following that he can then use a proxy to kind of, hopefully use their tokens in the right way, we would hope. But I think it gives power to brands and certain people, where people can spring up on these different networks and have their different proxies and, guide those networks the way they should be, or at least most of the constituents would have. But in a way, that's kind of what Sutler Ventures is trying to do, right? Like we've had many conversations about this where we're moving to different networks. It would help to, have this group of people that are financially incentivized, but also like kind of, how can I say this? I don't want to say related, but they have the same mindset, right? Like we want to see this network do well for whatever the network is designed to do. And having that on different networks, having good people on different networks, that helps, right? That helps to centralize the network, as opposed to like what we see on Bitcoin, where maybe some have nefarious actions of trying to like control the hash rate to themselves and things like that. I think most cypherpunks would not want to do that. So there's kind of like a little bit of that. I know I'm getting on my soapbox right now. I think we'll talk to EOS Nation tomorrow. You guys were talking in the chat as well. Scott's talking about Go EOS. 1-2 says EOS Nation just launched a worker proposal on EOS testnet. The EOS block producers need to vote on the worker proposal, and there won't be an inflation to this worker proposal system. So I wonder where those funds will come from, but that's if you guys have questions for EOS Nation, drop them now. It should be a good time, but yeah, I see this as good. Most people are going to chase the APR, right? They're gonna. This one has 4. This one has 3. I'm going 4. But
100%.
One thing I want to say too at the end of that, Tezos is actually launching a feature. They're going to upgrade their system, I think, at the end of the year, where exchange votes won't count.
Oh, wow. What?
Yeah, so they can literally toggle on and off whether a user can say, I want these funds to be used by the exchange, or I don't want these funds to be used by an exchange. So it essentially decentralizes that network, big. Right?
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah. Wow.
Damn. Shout out Olaf.
Yeah. Should be cool.
Olaf doesn't get enough credit, man. He, for all you making gains out there on your Tezos, Olaf basically saved that network in more ways than one. We've talked about that before, but Tezos, like a year and a half ago, was going through it, if even that long, and now that's amazing. That is such a good idea, and they're probably going to be able to implement it relatively quickly because of the self-amending protocol, setup that they have, and kind of the general cohesiveness. But anyway, yeah, super interested to hear what EOS Nation has to say, and hopefully they can impart some bullish news for you and Scott.
We can only hope. Scott,
Yeah.
I'm here for you, man.
Well, anyway, I have the final story here. This is we're going to finish with some cringe, a little bit of hilarity. We talked a little bit about how CZ got burned alongside Justin Sun. He is going through it. He got trolled on Twitter by OKX. So as we talked about before, Binance has been having issues with their exchange. On the 4th was a big day for news, big day for crypto. Trading was paused again. So this is not brand new, but CZ basically came out and tweeted and said, this is all he said, which is, number one red flag to me. Trading paused due to a message broker issue, working on it. So CZ to me sounds super frustrated already. Then you've got other people in the community who are not happy, right? Because price is moving and they can't trade on Binance. Somebody said, what's with these issues over the last month? Can you stop pushing degen features and just go back to being a robust working exchange? Like, whew.
Got him.
Insert gif of guy going nuts. And somebody else said this is becoming far too regular an event, which I would have to agree with. So those were bad, but by and far the worst was the CEO, Jay Howe of OKX, tweeted back to CZ, just commented and said, hey, CZ, technically Kafka is a message queue system to log. It's not enough for trading system. Thus the broker problem will always occur. Need help? ? CZ blocked him on Twitter.
Got him.
So, I mean, not great if you're, I use Binance constantly. I haven't had an issue where the timing of their delay or whatnot has affected me, but it is worrisome that this continues to happen. Binance has never really had this issue. Obviously they're expanding. We don't want a scenario where this is like a too big to fail in the space. If CZ or Binance had issues with this kind of hack of sorts many months ago, and then I think there was another leak of some kind, like KYC data or something that was leaked, and they had all the goings on with the block, and now this with Justin Sun and issues with the exchange. It's like, it's not good. Anybody who had gone through Mt. Gox or gone through other exchanges that have been hacked or had issues, there's lots of deja vu, lots of PTSD going on there. But it's prayers for CZ, man. He's having some sleepless nights, I think, for sure.
Yeah, if we know anything about CZ, he'll be back. But OKX actually just changed out their U.S. arm CEO, I believe, too. So OKX making some moves in the U.S. Maybe it's coordinated what they're doing with CZ right now. But yeah, man, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that is what we got. Deem, where are we sitting on Bitcoin?
You can see it actually on the screen there. 77.56 is the futures price at the moment. So it looks like we're bottoming a little bit, then we're holding, right? Compared to like the stock market, 2,000 points down. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Like,
what we need to do is we got to figure out a way to get Rick on this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you said Rick couldn't come on.
Yeah.
Maybe he can come on just as Rick and not like a part of.
We'll mask him. We'll be like an official,
anonymous,
anonymous person. That's from Wall Street, and we'll have the special voice, scrambler, like
And then we turn the light on him.
Exposed.
Just tell him it's a voice scrambler and there's no voice.
So
I can hear his awesome New York accent. But yeah, it's it's a wild world out there for sure. Stay safe out there. It's hopefully Tuesday's an easier day for everybody.
Wait, did we go the whole episode without mentioning that Dimitri's desk is tomorrow?
Almost. You say?
Oh my god.
ABS, dude. It's your always be chilling. Let's go.
Yeah, always be chilling. Yeah, guys. So tomorrow, 5 p.m. Easterns, we're doing Dimitri's desk again. Be sure to tune into that. We'll give you updates on what's going on with crypto.
Cool, man.
Where to buy back in, Scott? He'll help you out, man.
Definitely. Yeah, there has to be some support around 270 to 280, right? Please tell me.
The chart doesn't go any lower. The chart doesn't go any lower, sir.
How about that Arthur meme I sent to the group? That was like an all timer.
That's an old one. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Dima. All right. Mike's going to NOLA. Mike, please be careful over there. Stay safe. I'm sure you will. That'll be a good time. I used to live over there actually, across the Lake Pontchartrain in Slidell, Louisiana, when I was real young. But anyways, have a fun time. Guys, we have EOS Nation on the podcast on Wednesday. We're dropping the episode. We're talking to him tomorrow. So if you have, any questions that you want to send over to him, please drop them in the Telegram. Also, we'll be running a poll in our Telegram group, which I'll link in the description. We're going to name this little guy right here. I don't know his name. I'm just going to say CryptoKitty, this little CryptoKitty from CryptoKaiju. So you guys get in our Telegram chat and tell us what you think it should be named. But that's about it, guys.
That's it. Until next time.
Bang, bang.
All right, guys.